Winning fights is super hard. You have to balance emotions, fear, you have to remember the game plan, you have to stick to the game plan while simultaneously trying not to get beat up. It's all terribly complex. What if I told you that this one trick, this one basic fact, could make all of that 100 times easier? And it's all because of this guy. This is a caveman. Let's call him John. Thousands of years ago, this guy saw his friend get eaten by a lion. Scary stuff. Now, John doesn't really want to get eaten by a lion, and so his brain creates this thing called fear. But you're not stupid. You know fear can win fights, and you don't need this video. Except you do. Because 95% of fighters think that the way to make your opponent fear you is to hit hard. However, that is actually having the opposite effect, and I'll tell you why. You may have heard about this thing called fight or flight. That goes back to John. When the lion approaches, he has the option to fight it or just flee. Now, fight or flight is actually a bit of a lie, because it's not fight or flight, it's actually fight, flight, or freeze. Now, most think that hitting hard is going to invoke that freeze response, but that's actually wrong, because when we're presented with an immediate, unstoppable danger, our response is not actually to flee or freeze, it is to immediately fight back. And that's exactly what happens when you hit hard. That's when you get into wars. What we want is complete domination, and the way to get this is a lot trickier. The first step for inspiring fear is range control. For this purpose, range control comes down less so to keeping them where you want, and more so to showing them different ranges. Let's look at Jon Jones for this. Jon is very tall, has a very long reach, and has great kicks. Jon should try to stay at kicking range to win, right? But he often finds himself right here. This is in elbow range, and as someone with a long reach, that should be the place you avoid. However, Jon is smart, because Jon knows that his opponent wants to get close in order to box, elbow, clinch, whatever. And so Jon lets them get there, and when they do, he starts unleashing elbows, knees, punches. So what does this do? Well, it comes back to Jon the caveman. He saw a lion eat his body, and now he doesn't want to go anywhere near lions. Same thing with Jon's opponents. They do want to be close, but Jon tags them with elbows that cut, knees that drain them, and punches that hurt. And all of this causes them instinctively, despite having a game plan, to stay out of there. So instead, they stay in kicking range, which is exactly where Jon can piece them up. And then back and forth it goes. Jon pieces them up and hurts them in kicking range, so they get close again, and they're reminded with knees and elbows that no, this ain't where you want to be. Range control and creativity in those ranges can be hard, and that's exactly why I've made the range control workout. This is a $5 workout with 15 exercises based on some of the best fighters in the world. I've put a lot of love into this workout, and I genuinely think it's gonna help. Check it out through the link in the description or comments. It's only $5 and it helps the channel a ton. I appreciate it. Now, for step 2, we're going to work off of that last step. We've set up our weapons in different ranges, but we need to add something to this. And that something is pain. But a lot of fighters can grit through pain. Take DC for example. He's been through a shitload of stuff, and some knees from Jon Jones can't possibly stop him, right? Well, mentally no. However, physically, your body can't keep up. Take Anthony Smith. Mentally, he didn't give up fully. He survived. But physically, the guy couldn't do anything. The shots hurt too much for his body to dare do anything. Your mind won't allow you to make conscious mistakes and won't allow you to take the risks necessary to win the fight. The brain won't follow your orders if it thinks it's going to take a lot of punishment doing so. Even DC, he never quit like Smith, but even though he kept moving forward and kept trying to win, his body instinctively reacted to what it thought was a body kick, and then boom, head kick KO. Now DC is exceptionally tough, but most of your opponents aren't going to be. For them, damage and heavy shots are going to cause hesitation and that freeze response. Now they fear us because we've hurt them. But there's still one step left, and this is really where you start to dominate. This is where you get those Holloway Cater, those O'Malley Moutinho-esque performances. Step 3 is feinting. Now, why is feinting so important? Well, it comes down to overstimulating them. The previous step was damage, and damage builds fear, but it also builds respect. And that respect will lead to your opponent being more careful. You're not always going to make your opponent fear you by hurting them, but they will have to respect your shots. Therefore, they have to defend shots, and they're gonna flinch more often at shots. So by feinting, we essentially put them in defense mode, which costs them extra time and allows us to work off of our feints. If we look at, for example, Adesanya, he's great at feinting, but unless his opponents actively respect his shots, the feints aren't gonna do as much. If there's one fighter who does this better than anybody, it's Jon Jones. He is crazy good at this system, and it's honestly very simple. Instead of blasting everything you have for a minute straight at your opponent, you take it slow. You mix hard shots with damage in different ranges, and you make your opponent hesitate. Then it's just a matter of using your feints and working off of that fear. Try it out and let me know how it goes. As always, I appreciate the support. Don't forget to check out the range control workout linked down below, and I'll see you in the next one.